Hey everybody, GT Cam here once again. I thought I'd bring you a little sidebar. This is supposed to be also episode 5 of the DIY kit series. That said, I thought I'd recommend something to just make your lives a little bit easier after a discussion I was having with one of my regular viewers. And that is, well, let me back up. Once upon a time, I used to drive a tow truck, right? And we did primarily AAA calls. And it's been a few years. But to this day, I remember one vehicle. I mean, there's several I remember, but for one particular reason, I remember one vehicle, okay? On those trucks, we carried one of those small Harbor Freight little service jacks. They were lightweight, aluminum, easy to maneuver. When you have to sling those around on a service call or something, makes life a lot easier. Now, that said, they also came with a nice tubular handle. I went out to a service call one day, and the customer there had a Ford Ranger. I know, we could cue the mother effing Ford Ranger thing, whatever. That said, to this day, that thing was horrible, okay? So I get the lug wrench out and I reef on it. And then I ask for their lug wrench and I reef on it. And that damn lug nut would not budge, okay? I, at the time, did not have the luxury of an electric impact on the truck, which was also a possibility. You could do that. But at that time, it wasn't an option, and even the electric impacts at that time were probably a little more limited than the ones are now. And I couldn't get those lug nuts loose. Could not. So what I did is I grabbed the customer's lug wrench because it had a longer handle on it, and then I took the handle from my jack. Took it out of the jack while the jack was holding the whole freaking thing up. Well, I hadn't gotten to that point yet. I'll get to that. I had the jack under there, but I needed the jack handle, so you can imagine how that went. So, slap that freaking cheater on there. Jack handle became a cheater bar. And it still took everything I had in me to break those lug nuts loose. Somebody gave those lug nuts the biggest number of ooga-doogas in the history of mankind, near as I can tell. The only way those could have been tighter is if somebody just flat welded them to the lug nuts or welded them to the studs. Anyway, so since then, and having had a couple of experiences where along the roadside I had to take a lug wrench and try and muscle the freaking the lug nuts off because somebody in a shop somewhere decided that it was 1 ugga-dugga, 2 ugga-dugga, 3 ugga-dugga. I'm gonna have coffee while I'm doing this. Yeah, and I'm sure some of you have dealt with this as well. So, my solution to having to deal with it, I mean, obviously, in an ideal world, we just have a nice DeWalt Milwaukee something, or I think even one of the new Harbor Freights may actually have enough torque to do it. We would just have something like that and just zip those freaking lug nuts off, because you know what? It sucks busting your ass along the side of the shoulder along a freeway somewhere in the rain and wind and freaking people blowing by you at 60 because nobody gets over for the move over law that applies also to flashers in my state, but that's another story. So, simple solution without going the route of an impact. Right here in my hand, what I have is a 24-inch ratchet. Most people aren't going to recommend a ratchet. I probably wouldn't. I would use this one simply because I really don't care about this one. It's here. I would sell it on eBay, but it would cost me more in shipping than I'd make on the ratchet. So anyway, but much cheaper solution than this is to go to your local Harbor Freight, or you can go onto Amazon. It doesn't really much matter. Find yourself a nice cheap breaker bar, okay? Grab yourself whichever brand, just whichever one's affordable. There's plenty of stuff floating around out there. You're using a 1/2-inch breaker bar. For most vehicles, this isn't going to be a big deal. If you're messing with a 1-ton truck and you've had issues in the past, you might consider upgrading to something longer and maybe adding a cheater bar. But take something like this, 2-foot breaker, 25-inch breaker, something right around there. You can grab the cheapo from Harbor Freight. It works plenty good. I used one for years before I replaced it with a gear wrench that I have shifted to make room for something on my bench, and I'll be damned if I can remember where I put it. But anyway, and then you grab yourself a deep impact socket of whatever appropriate size. If it makes you feel better, you can keep a whole set, so you want to be able to address anybody's issues you happen to come across. Personally, I only worry about the vehicle I'm driving. That's just how it is. On my vehicle, my day-to-day driver, it's a 22 millimeter. This is actually out of my kit in the shop here, out of my impact sockets. But grab yourself the breaker, grab yourself an impact socket, or a cheap chrome socket, doesn't really matter. But then you are much better equipped than just having this stupid lug wrench, because the lug wrenches suck, okay? Those things are terrible. It might not be so bad if you have one of those big old style, the forearms kind of things. I liked those. But, you know, realistically, a 2-foot breaker, in some cases, if you got deep wheels, you might want a 6-inch extension or something. I use a deep socket just so I get more clearance. If you wanted to get really fancy, you could grab a ratchet with a freaking locking flex head or standard flex head. I'm not a big fan in a high effort situation. I am not a fan of non-locking flex heads. I have ended up on my head too damn many times to not doing it. So anyway, I thought I'd throw that out there. You can probably go grab a whole set of sockets from freaking Harbor Freight for, I don't know, $15 or something. I haven't looked. Grab a breaker for 15 or 20 bucks, and you have a much more preferable solution than using one of those terrible freaking lug wrenches. So on that note, that's what I had for you on this one. Hope that helps some of you. Also, you know, if you're doing this for your DIY kit, it makes your life a lot easier. Also, if you've got bigger lug nuts, more leverage. 2-foot breaker on a Jeep TJ running 35s and 37s, and yeah, 100 foot-pounds of torque on those. I want another foot. But anyway, so on that note, hope that helps some of you out there. Just a little food for thought. GT Cam out.